Though we know who we are, yet we know not what we may be. So maybe I'm the one, or maybe I'm crazy. I'm from.
Welcome back to your No Malarkey Guide to Machine Learning. My name is Kalu Clues. You guys know from the last video, we're trying to figure out the standard deviation of our area. And if you don't know why, please watch the last video, which is why we need the standard deviation. I went through a pretty lengthy explanation of why. So we want to figure out the standard deviation. There's good news and then there's bad news. The good news is we can do this, and well, there's good news and there's less good news. Both, none of them are bad. The good news is to figure out the standard deviation of our area, and we can do that very easily by doing area.std. Maybe we need to call that. There it is. And there's our standard deviation. Good. Problem solved. Video over. No. So we can use right here pandas. Remember, this is a pandas data frame. Well, this is a pandas series. Don't worry what those words mean. But we can just call this method std, right? And it'll give us the standard deviation. But we're going to actually follow the formula right here and do it ourselves, because I think we can build our own method. So how do we do it ourselves? Let's follow this right here. So we need to get the sum for each observation, right? So by observation, I mean all of this area has a whole bunch of observations. There's observation number one, number two, number three, number 4,560, 59, but remember we start at 0, so this is 1,460. So for all these observations we have in our data set of ground living area, we need to take each observation, subtract it by the average. Again, the average is this right here, 1,515, square it, and then sum it all up. So taking each observation, subtracting it by the average and squaring it, that's called an error. So for each observation, we want to figure out how much it deviates from the mean, the square of how much it deviates from the mean. And then we want to square up all of those, we want to sum up all of those square errors. So first, let's do this. Let's do error, square error list. We want to get a list of all our square errors for each observation. So if you want to go through every iteration, everything in a list, we need a for loop, right? So for observation in our data set of areas, right? For observation in area, I forgot the N, we want to get the error, right? And the error is going to be equal to the observation. Here, let me put these in parentheses for reasons of orders of operations. So it's going to be equal to the observation minus the average area.mean, right? Squared. And let's look at that squared right here. So that is going to give us the error. And then we want to, oh no, what mistake did I have? Let's go back. What mistake did I have? I really don't, I can't see the mistake. For observation in area, we want to take, I don't see the mistake. Can you guys help me figure out the mistake? I don't know what the mistake was. So anyway, for each observation in area, so let's do that again. For each observation in area, we want to get the error, which is equal to our observation minus the mean squared. And then with that, we want to append it to our list. Remember our list that we created over here, our square error list. So we want to square error list dot append. We want to append that error to our list. And now we have a list of errors. So just before I do that, it should be square error list. It should be 1,460, right? We have a list of all the square errors for each observation. But we really want to get the sum of that. That's what this means right here. We want to get the sum of that. So sum of square error list. And sum is a method that automatically comes with Python. So this is the sum of square error list. But instead of getting the sum of that, we want to take this sum and divide it by n minus 1. N here equals the number of observations. So the counts, the number of observations right here. So we have 1,460. We could just do n equals 1,460. So we want to get, again, here, let's call this square error sum equals the sum of square error list. So we want to take the square error sum and we want to divide that by n minus 1. N minus 1. And that will give us our standard deviation. That will give us our standard deviation squared. And what is our standard deviation squared called? That is called the variance. So that will give us our variance. But we don't want the variance, we want the standard deviation, and that is taking the square root of this. So we did our squared error sum, this right here, divided by n minus 1, and that gives us our variance. But we want to take the square root of that number, and that will give us our standard deviation. So square root, we can get the square root of something by doing from math imports square roots, and it's going to give us, math is a built-in library that comes with Python. It's going to give us the square root method. So our standard deviation equals the square root of our variance right here. And remember, our variance is just our square error sum divided by n minus 1. So let's do that, variance, and then this should be our standard deviation. Great, 525.48. And if you remember, we had that built-in standard deviation the pandas gave us, that built-in standard deviation method the pandas gave us. So area.std, and let's call this method, and it gives us the same thing. Look at that. So we were able to do something, build our own equation, or go through our own steps to figure out standard deviation. You guys did great. In the next video, we're going to try to make some abstraction. So we've been able to write this out. Why don't we abstract it away by building a function that can do this on demand? Because remember, we need to get the standard deviation for both independent variables. So we have the standard deviation now for our ground living area, but we also need to get the standard deviation for our garage area. Don't forget that. So we also need to get our standard deviation. But first, we're going to build a function that does all of this stuff we just did and does it in one function, just to learn the idea of abstraction and data method. And this is something that this built-in STD method the pandas provides already does for us. And we're going to build our own .std method. See you guys at the next video. If you enjoy content like this, please like at the bottom. Please make sure you subscribe and tell about 10 to 15 of your friends. If you're African, don't forget you got to tell about 100 or 500 of your friends. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys at the next video. Peace.
Financial freedom, my only hope.